sexist, misogynist, cartoonist. We're going to go ahead and take a look back at Walt Disney's original 1937 animated classic, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. So on Rotten Tomatoes, the audience gave Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs 78%. Ooh. However, critics give it a 97%. So there are 3% of critics who reviewed this film that did not like Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, and we are going to roast them. We're going to start off with Eric Henderson from Slant Magazine. Eric says, Snow White fails to transcend its insipid characters, kitschy setting, and abysmal pacing. Newsflash, Eric! Eric! Hello, you're there! Eric, fairy tale dude. Kitschy is kind of the point, yo. As for pacing, this is a product of its time. Films were a lot slower back then, and rightfully so. Movies used to take their time in exploring their themes, exploring what the story actually is about, allowing us to sit with the character in order to feel their emotions. So yeah, this guy needs to cut the animators some slack for literally inventing the techniques that are still used today, almost a century later. And then he has the memories to say the animators truly didn't grasp the duration of how 24 frames would play when jammed into 1 second. This had never been done before. Short of little cartoons where 4 black spots represented a rabbit, and there were no plots. And this guy is gonna come across and say, "Oh, you should have known what 24 frames in a second is gonna look like." What an absolute pecker lover. Eric continues, thanks to the maladroit's animation, she isn't even pretty enough. Holy crap, sexist, misogynist, cartoonist. No one else has a problem with this? This was in 2009. But we're just gonna let him get away with saying that a Disney character from the 30s is not pretty enough? Nobody's gonna call this guy out on it. What is going on? Bill Dupree from News and Observer, Raleigh, North Carolina, says, at the risk of being banished from the Magic Kingdom, I'll come right out and say it. Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs is a bore. Bill thinks it takes a unique set of balls to pan a classic. No, that just makes you look stupid. And clearly, he should not have publicized this review because he is afraid of the Disney mob coming at him with plastic pitchforks and Mickey Mouse ears. Calling Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs a bore is like shooting spitwads at the Sistine Chapel. You just don't do that. That's not a thing that's like the most un-American thing you can do. Or it's like trying to convince a party of 8-year-olds that pizza sucks. Bill probably hates pizza. Alright, let's go over to George Campbell Dixon from Daily Telegraph UK. George says, there is too much knockabout. The dwarves are continually running into judging by Mr. Disney's own standards. If Walt Disney were looking at what cartoons represented already, all they were just dumb little cartoons with practically like stick figure animations running around on white sheets of paper. That's what a cartoon was. And he wanted to make a cartoon suitable for the big screen. So he could have just made a black and white cartoon, stick figures running around. They just have like a bigger story to tell. This could have been a wacky, silly, stupid slapstick with bunnies and rabbits running around. But he didn't. But he crafted a masterpiece. And then he says that the dwarves come across as too judgmental. Well, yeah. They come home from a hard day's work. There's a giant spread across a bunch of their beds. They're gonna freak out. They've never seen a female before.
What is it?
Who is this bosomed person taking over our cottage and our beds? For all we know, they loved the mess.
She don't belong here no how.
So yeah, they're gonna be a little freaked out. They are actually representing the audience. They are the audience's eyes. And for Walt Disney to have us really relate to Seven Dwarfs that's pretty cool. Damon Runyon from Miami Herald says, it landed on that dead spot of ours, plunging us into deep melancholy. So this guy clearly is offended by the existence of this film. So offended, in fact, that he created an account only to write a review for this movie and this movie alone. And or for him, who knows? The critic score could have been 98 instead of 97. And I know that doesn't matter, but it's exciting to see the things we love get the awards and the praise that they deserve, right? This movie did not deserve 97%. This is a 100% film. You know, if this film had gotten 100%, that would have been a shutdown.
Shut out!
Shut out, sorry. This is why I talk about movies and not sports. I'm not your ESPN commentator. Calm down. All right, let's jump over to the audience reviews. Allison T gives 4.5 stars, says it's good, but some scenes scare children under the age of 6 or up. Gotta love that anybody can contribute to the internet. Neo L gives Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs half a star, says this movie is dog water. They are just trying to be meta. Being meta doesn't mean ruining a classic with modern cliches. Alright, so if this were a trivia question, I think a lot of people would assume that this review would be for the movie Shrek. I don't think that even in 1937, people recognized Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs as being cliched. I don't even know if they knew the word meta. So there was nothing else to compare it to, or even to parody. This film was the first of its time. Unless you want to say that it copied the fairy tale that everybody knows that it's from, but even then, there's a lot of liberations taken for this film. It's like saying that Babe Ruth got all of his skill set from Albert Pujols. Another no-name gave it half a star, says, began screening it before letting kids watch and not interested. Barely got 1 minute into it. The first scene is Queen talking to her mirror, summoning up the spirit she wants to talk to. Not interested in witchcraft, thanks. We're just gonna fly past that one on our broomstick. Most honest review for Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs also comes from a no-name reviewer. This is gonna be an audience reviewer. Gives it 5 stars. Says, one of my favorite Disney movies of all time is perfect. Grammar errors or not, this is a solid review. And I will see you in the next film.